Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, everyone. My name is Akash. I'm the CEO of Airtime, which is an autonomous product discovery platform turning user calls into product insights in 2 clicks. I see a number of audience members already active here. Um, Tell us where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. And my primary reason for asking that is one, I love to hear where people are tuning in from, and two, I'd like to make sure that technology works because it's 2024, but we all use Zoom, we all use Teams, and we all know how painful they are. So just leave me a thumbs up, please, here. Now, the second primary reason, if that's not some sort of like a crazy idea here, but the second reason that you tuned in is because I have a guest today, and this guest is Eric Weiss. He is an amazing serial founder from the Silicon Valley, a former PM and CTO with over 20 years of experience building outstanding tech products. He's now the founder and CEO of Chaos to Clarity. And what we'll talk about today is how to build better products through continuous validation. And before we kick things off, I have a few technicalities to share. So first of all, this is a live. It's going to be a live discussion in the next, or a lively discussion. Let's put it that way. In the next 30 minutes, between me and Eric. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments or thoughts to add, please use the comments. I love when we get these kind of questions, and if they fit in the conversation, I'll just throw them straight away on the screen and at Eric, and we'll pick his mind. Um, Number two, if you want to do a background check on Eric or myself, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm going to put our LinkedIn profiles and the links to that in the comments. Feel free to add us, and if you have any questions, maybe after the webinar, something that pops up, something that inspired you from what Eric said, um, you're more than welcome to reach out to both of us. Last point from my side, and then we're going to plunge in the deep water of solution validation with Eric. The last thing is, um, as as like a recognition for you being here, there's also a little something from my side as an Airtime founder that I want to leave with you. I have a little secret promo code for Airtime that you can use. Don't check it out now, but have a look at Airtime after the discussion. And if you like what you see, you can use the secret promo code to get 25% off for the next 3 months. Now, I said everything that I had to, and I'm almost within the 2 minutes that I allot myself. So without further ado, Eric, it's a pleasure and honor to have you here. I'm grateful that you accepted my invitation. And let's kick things off by sharing a few words about yourself and your background.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks, Akash, for inviting me and rescheduling and all the juggling we had to do to be here today. Thanks to everyone in the audience. I hope that you will get a lot of value from this conversation. It's going to be short and sweet, so we're going to cram in as much knowledge as possible. But as he said, you're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm constantly trying to put out value, put out content to help product designers and founders build better products and make their customers' lives a little bit better. So a little bit about me. So I actually came into product by way of engineering. I'm a software engineer, CTO, and been working in big tech and startups in Silicon Valley, but I actually live in San Diego. But I've worked with dozens of different tech companies, from OpenAI and Sony and a bunch of other big companies, down to the small scrappy startups that you wouldn't heard of unless you're in that niche. But what I discovered, or the epiphany that I had somewhere along the way in my career, was that as a CTO, my mission or my focus was on creating an incredibly efficient garbage factory. So I had these incredible, processes, and we're doing agile. We've got all of our automation, and we're building incredibly sophisticated code, and so on and so forth. And we would, put all of our heart and soul into building features, only for them to just sit on a shelf, or just, sit out there in the market with nobody using them. And I got really sick and tired of building features that nobody wanted, and I started challenging product management, started challenging co-founders to say, can you please stop bringing me requests for features unless you have good evidence to prove that the market actually wants this. And I never got what I wanted. And so I ended up just doing it myself. So I took over product in the companies that I was working for. I started researching and learning and really diving into product management, and to the point where I now am a published author. I have a book called Growth by Design. I'm a public speaker. I do coaching and consulting all around product management, kind of in a self-serving way because I'm trying to help out my CTO and engineering brethren to build things that people really want. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Yeah, here I am. Happy to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. And I think, Eric, you being an experienced podcast host yourself, you just provided the perfect segue into the first question and the topic that we're focusing on today, which is how do you validate solutions? And the underlying idea is to ensure that there's an acute problem that a product solves, and there's like a willingness to pay. And I'm sure you add some additional layers on top of that. But ultimately, what you want to build are features and products that people use and are willing to pay for. And as a first step exploring this topic, I wanted to ask you like how you define validating a solution. How do you what should be? It's quite abstract. And I was wondering if you have like a good story or a good way to wrap our heads around that.
Sure. Yeah. So I always talk about we're searching for signal. So wherever we are, kind of in the continuum from, we may have some half baked idea, or maybe we're hearing some grumblings in the market, or we're seeing some kind of patterns showing up again and again in forums or blog posts or what have you, that there's some signal, there's some pattern that our brains kind of connect to say, wait, there's something there. And let me follow that signal and see where it goes. So, the first stage of this is really just validating that I understand who my customers are. And when we talk about customers, this is really just a group of people that we want to help. So I say, forget about the solution, forget about the problem, focus on finding your tribe. First chapter in the book. And that is not just to say like, oh, I want to help, software developers, or I want to help product designers, but we got to do our personas, right? But to really understand them at a deep level to the point where we can start to make predictions or validate predictions, meaning when we're having a conversation with someone that I either can anticipate what they're going to say, meaning I'm kind of hearing repeating patterns over and over again in my interviews, or that if I say something back to them that they acknowledge it, that they resonate. Yes, that is me. Those are my goals. Those are my pain points, right? Those are the features or the solutions that I'm currently using. So the signal is kind of this like call and answer, right? That you're going out there and you're listening to the market, and then you're digesting it and feeding it back to them to say, does this resonate, right? Or is this a good reflection? So we
Yeah.
start with the customer and we try to understand them. Then we move on to the problem phase. And that's essentially getting this broad understanding of all the frustrations and all the, the pain points and unmet needs and so on that they have in their life. And then we start to narrow down to say, well, which ones are the most severe, which ones have the worst, solutions available, which ones are they paying the most money or spending the most time to try to solve. And then we kind of narrow in on one. We pick that one and we dive a layer deeper, and we understand what are the pain points and what are the specific facets of that problem that make it such a big frustration, and why exactly do the existing solutions not meet it. And then we flip to a solution. Well, what would a solution have to have in order to be better than what's out there, and so on and so forth. So we're kind of following that signal, and as long as we're getting a sort of emotional, emphatic response from the customer, and that when we echo things back to them, that they equally are as excited and engaged, we keep following. Now, as soon as
Yeah.
we lose that signal, right? As soon as we get down to a certain path where they're not responding, right? They're not saying, well, maybe that's it, maybe it's not, or well, that would be okay, but that doesn't really solve my problem, or maybe they're just not engaging in your social media content or going to your website or signing up for the beta or whatever. We say, all right, we got to take a step back. The solution isn't resonating. Let's move back up to the pain points. Let's move back to the problem. Or it may even be this isn't even the right customer. And so we kind of do these, this drilling down from the hierarchy, customer, problem, pain point, solution, and we kind of go up and down until we find something that really clicks, and that's product market fit.
Okay, there's so much to unpack here, and I try to
First
be
layer.
mindful of of the time, but I love this framework that you
Yeah.
pointed out. So first, define your ICP, your persona, then explore all the pain points and important pain points that they have. Pick one, narrow in on that, and then try to find the right solution for this. One of the
Mhm.
things that fascinate me a lot is when you define a persona. Is there a certain like ideal granularity in terms of
Mhm.
segmentation that you've found in your line of work, working with startups or bigger companies that helps you to create this like homogeneous need that it's
Yeah.
not diverging? And I give you an example of what I mean. Like and a persona for airtime, I could say it's like B2B mid-sized companies. But then in these
Mhm.
companies, I could talk to head of product. I could talk to a junior product manager. I could talk to a user
Mhm.
researcher. I'm going to hear very different things about that. So I'm curious how what's when is it not too granular and what's the
Yeah.
ideal depth that one should go?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touching on a sort of paradox that founders have to deal with here. That the wisdom in product development is the riches are in the niches. That you want to be as specific as you possibly can, so that you can really, really, really understand your customer segment and build a solution that absolutely nails it for them in their situation, in their context. But then the investors are telling us, well, you need to have serve a broad a market as possible. This thing needs to be as big as you possibly can. And those things are constantly at odds. So, my recommendation to be thorough is to get as fine a granularity as you can. And then look for these adjacent markets, meaning if I flip one variable here, like their job title or the industry or years of experience or what have you, that do the same things apply? Are they the same pain points? Are they the same use cases, right? With the same solution, with the same feature set and the same set of integrations and so on, work just as well for this adjacent market as this one, then you can say, all right, I'm going to, release that variable and widen my market a little bit. And then basically it's not about if, it's when. So we will eventually, capture a larger and larger market as we have more time to grow and build additional features. But for the first go round, right? And until we know we've really nailed it for one segment, we keep it locked down as tightly as we can. And then we only release or only widen our market where we feel really confident the solution is going to be just as valuable and as high quality.
Amazing. I am moving on from this from the ideal from this persona to the problem and specifically the pain point. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what's your technique to validate if someone is actually willing to solve a pain point? And I give you a very stupid example. So I have my I ride my bike in Berlin everywhere, and I
Mm-hmm.
have this lock. It's rusty. It's bad. I hate it. I've been hating it for years. It would take me about 5 seconds to go on Amazon and buy a new one, and I haven't done it. And I think if I want to take it to the abstract level, it's something. Hopefully, it's not just me, but I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a general phenomenon that as human beings, there's this sort of a um, like sluggishness in the way that we actually decide and act on solving problems. So I was just wondering if
Mm-hmm.
you have like a technique to poke and figure out if people are really willing to solve
Yeah.
a pain point.
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges, it's inertia, switching costs. So I
Yeah,
always say that your biggest competitor is doing nothing, right? And so when we're getting into sort of market research here, when you're doing
yeah,
competitive analysis, you can look at all of these different solutions sort of objectively, right? Quality, feature set, what have you. But that only applies to new customers who aren't using any existing solution or any of those existing solutions. But if somebody's already locked into a sticky solution, even if it's an old lock or an old way of doing things, habits are very hard to break. And so we always have to understand what the level of inertia is and what would it take to drive them to make a switch. I mean, that's why a lot of product designers are looking for stickiness, and why they're looking for stickiness on the back end, and they're looking for smoothness on the onboarding. They want to make it as easy as possible to switch, and they want to make it as hard as possible to leave. And that's, it's a real thing. There's a real cost. So how do we suss that out? How do we understand it? Well, one is to understand, well, how long have you been using the solution that you're doing now, right? If it's something that I've had this lock for 20 years, the stickiness is obviously pretty high because you probably would have done it by
Mhm.
now. If and you'd ask, well, how much did you pay for the existing solution? How much did you invest in that solution? If it's like, I spent $1,000 on this thing 20 years ago, you've got a high level of value associated with that thing, right? But if it was something like, I got it for free, I've just had it for 20 years, you know, it's really maybe sort of laziness or procrastination that's preventing me from switching, which tells me a different thing, which is like, I actually just don't care, right? So there's two things. One is,
Yep.
I really, really care that the lock that I'm using is very robust and secure and lightweight and so on and so forth. I care about my lock, but I associate a lot of value to the one that I already have. That's a switching cost kind of inertia. If it's,
Yep.
yeah, I've just had the thing for 20 years, I actually don't care. Sure, if you gave me a free lock, I would just throw the thing in the trash, but I'm not going to go out of my way to buy something new. That means it's just not a very good problem. So that's kind of how we suss it out. And what we're getting at all of this is like, we ask questions, we interview, we talk to our customers, we survey them, we look at what's in the market, and we try to suss these things out. So kind of the thread going through all of this, by the way, is we need to be talking to our customers all the time. And so when we talk about continuous validation, the most important underpinning here is that we have systems in place that we're talking to our customers every week, every day, whether it's in person, whether it's on social media, et cetera. So the more interactions we're having, the more nuanced and close to these different kinds of facets of the problem we can get.
Absolutely. Let's move on to to the solution space, and let's assume
Mhm.
that we have a good understanding of our persona. We narrow down on a particular pain point, and like with everything, there are multiple. The team comes together, and there are three solution options. We could do X, we
Mhm.
could do Y, we could do Z. Um,
Mhm.
what's your approach to, because you can't, like, on the other hand, you can't validate all solution permutations out there. So you
Mhm.
have to
Mhm.
somehow pick your best bet at what a good solution would be, and then go and validate that.
Mhm.
What's your approach to picking the
Yeah.
solution that you end up then validating?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a big one. Let's unpack this a little bit. So let's
Yeah,
first
yeah,
talk
go
about
ahead.
what everyone's doing wrong, which is they do a bit of research and they see that there's a pain point. They see there's a problem in the market. Maybe they go through the effort to really understand the problem and how it manifests and so on. But a lot of times they're like, there's a big problem here. Usually it's because I'm seeing some competition, or, I talked to some people and they really complained about it. Okay, good enough. Let's go build something. And the common founder the failure pattern is, I've got an idea. I'm just going to go build it. Meaning I'm doing no validation, right? I have this idea in my mind and I just need to hire a bunch of builders to take the thing out of my brain and make it a reality. And I'm going to work on this thing for 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, before it really interacts with the customer, right? Before it sees the light of day. And then it usually either like completely fails, or it maybe kind of sort of gets a little bit of traction. Now we go ahead and launch it and we're stuck in that muck, which is
Mhm.
basically searching for product market fit without doing validation here. So that's like on one end of the extreme. On the other end of the extreme is where, you hire this enormous team of researchers and you be absolutely scientific and you're making sure that every single variable and facet has been accounted for. That's very like big company, enterprise, waterfall, or even like, medical devices, right? Things where the stakes are really high. Most of us are somewhere in the middle here. So what's the right amount of validation that we need to go to here?
Hmm.
And that's where I talk about continuous validation. So it's like a really core paradigm. So I come from, again, I'm a CTO. I come from the agile development world, and we do things in increments and cycles, right? And we have feedback loops. And so part of my journey as product person is to take these same agile principles and bring it to other areas of the business, product, sales, marketing, etc. So what's important here is that we have these tight feedback loops where we say we're going to work on a thing for a couple of weeks and we're going to go get feedback on it, and then we're going to adjust it, and then we're going to fix it up again, we're going to go get more feedback on it. So when we're talking about validating different ideas or different approaches to a solution, what can we do where we can say how many different concepts or how many different ideas can we create in a couple week period? Well, okay, we do some brainstorming, we come up with some concepts, assuming we've already really nailed down all the different pain points and we really have a good understanding of the problem and all the solutions that are out there and so on. We say, all right, we need to craft a solution that meets these criteria. What are all the different ways we do it? Come up with a bunch of concepts, which are basically stories, right?
Hmm.
And then as we're engaging with customers, we're telling these stories and we're looking for which one is resonating the most. And as soon as something go, oh, wow, that would be really cool. Tell me more. Then we can start to dig into that and increase the fidelity until either it, becomes the thing and takes off, or we run out of signal and we say, oh, we got to take a step back. We missed something here along the way. So the idea is that there's a broad concept for the product itself, but then
Hmm.
there's more specific concepts for each individual feature. And we're just constantly doing this cycle of rapid validation, from storytelling to storyboarding to clickable prototypes, workable prototypes, and so on.
Yeah. I click prototypes, storyboards. We're slipping into techniques. Do you have some like favorite validation techniques? And I know it's not a nice way to put this question because there are so many different projects that you worked on, and
Sure.
like some techniques are necessitated by the thing that you want to validate. Is it the problem? Is it the solution? Is it something else? But
Yeah.
when we think about these validation techniques, what are like the top five that come to your mind that any startup should be
Mhm.
thinking about when it comes to continuous validation?
Yeah. Well, first, let's kind of like zoom in. So I don't want to just talk about the tricks, right? Buy a feature, Wizard of Oz, what have you, but really at a broad sense here, because I'm a very
Hmm.
principled um, designer, principled coach, that what matters more than anything is that we're talking to our customers. And in fact, not talking to them, that we're listening to our customers, right? So all of these different tools that have the cute names on them, these are just techniques or framings for conversations. So the most important thing is that we're having conversations with our customers where we are really truly listening. So the first thing I would say is learn to be an interviewer and read and study and practice on how to be a good interviewer, meaning, you know, ask more questions than you give statements, listen more than you speak, listen for, I always talk about like emotional or emphatic language, and follow those threads. When you hear somebody, you know, whether it's body language or in the words that they speak, follow those threads. So like, for example, if somebody says, ah, man, I freaking hate it when this happens, compare that to, yeah, it's kind of annoying when this happens. Well, obviously, that's the thread you want to follow. That's where the pain is. And
Yep.
all of that is just, the nature of being a good interviewer. So if you can be a good interviewer, you're 90% of the way there. Um, then it obviously depends on what stage of the process you're at, what tool works best. But if we're talking about, I mean, let's just kind of maybe pick one from each major stage here.
Yep.
If we're exploring the problem, um, it really, we're asking about their frustrations, things like that. And I say, like, the magic wand is probably the simplest one, where it's like, if you could snap your fingers and make any one of these problems go away instantly, no cost to you, which one would it be? Right. So we're just stack ranking. And stack
Yep.
ranking is a tool that we use along the whole the whole process to understand just what matters the most to them. They say, all right, if these are the things that you would, if you had one, 3 wishes, for example, you had 3 wishes, which one of these would you want to make go away? Okay, cool. Let's go into those things. And then you would say, like, well, how much would you pay for that wish? And so the idea would be, we're getting into pricing here, but
Yeah.
not only would you say, okay, these are the ones that emotionally just come up as the things I would just want to go away or the biggest frustrations, but also, well, now I'm actually starting to think rationally about how much I would pay to make that problem go away. And then you're getting into buy a feature, right? Same thing on the solution side. You'd say, you know what, if there's any aspect of this solution that you would fix immediately, what would it be? So that's just kind of these litmus tests of where the biggest problems are, the biggest pain points, as well as what the most important aspects of the solution would be. And then in terms of building, just from an engineering perspective, it's kind of like the concierge, but I call it the Flintstone test. But it's basically, I fake door, right? Or something like you've got, you're building a prototype and they try to do a thing and then you're doing a bunch of manual work behind the hood and then you're giving them the result. But I think that the concierge is probably the most important test for me as a builder because technology, I'm sorry, let me quick definition what a concierge is.
Yeah.
Concierge is basically you're doing the thing manually for them before you build the solution. So if somebody has a problem, you say, great, give me your data, give me your problem, and I'm going to go fix it for you and give it to you as a service. And you can charge for that service as a consultant, or you can do it for free or whatever you want to do. But what's amazing about this is it really helps, it really focuses you on the problem, but also the workflow, the process for solving that problem. And so then when you're building technology, you're basically just automating the manual process. But it's coming from this place of we've got a business here. We're doing a service business. We're solving a problem. We're helping our customers. We're learning about the process in really fine detail because we're doing it. And then we're just building tools to automate that thing to make our service business grow until we can flip it and say, cool, now it's self-service. The antithesis of that is we're going to go build this thing to automate a process that we don't really understand and spend like years and hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to automate a thing and then realize later, oh, we actually don't understand the workflow here and now it's broken and we got to go rework it at a very high cost. So I would say the concierge is definitely not only a tool or a trick, but like a go-to-market strategy. It's a business model that I strongly suggest.
Amazing. Amazing. So interviewing techniques, I think that's like an overarching theme that I picked up. Be good at interviewing techniques and talking to your customers, and then concierge is actually providing the value without the technology. If I may
Mhm.
paraphrase it in this
Yep,
way. Um,
exactly. Software is just
it
a scaling technique for a process. So if you don't understand the
yeah,
process, you're going to scale garbage.
and in your line of work. Um, or let me put it differently. A lot of times at airtime as well, this is a conflict that I live through, but I see it with many fellow founders is that there's always a tremendous pressure to grow. Like we're all like VC funded,
Mhm.
you have to go there, you have to show month-on-month growth, so you have to sort of move, right? And there's this
Mhm.
constant pressure of how can you build and validate or validate fast enough so you're building what's needed. And in my experience, like a lot of
Mhm.
times, corners get cut. Um, and my question to you is what's your how can you be efficient about validation?
Yeah. Well, so the first thing I do, and I have this conversation every single day, right? I coach founders and CEOs that always have this bias towards action. Let's call it. Um,
I have it
and
too, so feel free to
yeah, and the way I frame it is this: have you ever released a feature that didn't get adopted, where you spent a bunch of time and a bunch of energy, and you launched a feature and nobody used it? Okay, how much did it cost you to build that feature? How many, what's the cost per sprint, right? You take all your fully burdened
yeah.
burn rate and say, well, this thing took us a month to build, then a month of burn rate is what we invested in this feature. And that was complete waste, right? Because, well, why? Because we didn't validate the thing. So you can just kind of look back and say, well, what's our like success rate when we just build stuff without validating it? How often are we right? How often are we sort of catastrophically wrong, which is like nobody wanted it, nobody used it, it was a complete waste. And then again, there's usually something in the middle, which is how much rework had to be done before we felt like it was before the adoption really took off. So we kind of look at, complete flops, we look at cost of rework, and we say, this is the cost of not doing validation. Okay, so then it kind of depends on the company. How good are we at intrinsically or intuitively building the right thing? And the
Hmm.
secret to that is, do you have insiders in your company? Do you have the customers that are actually working at your company that really understand this intuitively? Right. And again, that comes from the concierge thing. If I've been providing this thing as a service, if I've been doing the work manually for a few years or whatever, I'm actually the customer because I'm the one that's doing the
Yep.
work and I'm building the solution for it. Um, at the very least, if you're as a founder, not one of your customers, you need to have those people on your team, have them on your board, and they're the ones that are your guinea pigs, and you're just making them, you're interviewing them constantly. They're always the first one to review things and so on, to make sure. So there's like some internal validation that can be done to speed things up. Now, then to your question is, what are the ways to make this process efficient? And that's why I call it continuous validation. So the idea here is we're not doing waterfall. We're not saying we're going to spend 3 months doing research, and then we're going to methodically go through this process of building up prototypes and beta testing and so on before we release. It's continuous, meaning we give ourselves sprints. We say, how far forward can we get before we get feedback on the thing? And the idea is that the feedback is just it's its own lane that's just happening throughout the entire process. So your product team, your UX team is just constantly recruiting and getting interviews and getting volunteers to come and test wherever we are in the process. If we're just having a conversation, if we're testing a concept, if we're testing a prototype, or we're doing beta testing or usability testing or what have you. And there's like the whole product, the MVP, and then there's each individual feature. So this is just a constant thing where we've got this funnel of interviews or participants that are coming in. And every sprint, we're just saying, all right, what do we have to test? And then we're just doing the validation, and that's feeding back in. So even if we're building a feature that might take us 3 months to fully build, that we've had all of these touch points along the way. And that's what human-centered design or user-centered design or co-creation is really all about, is that the customer has a seat at the table and they're just a part of the process. And we're not waiting for anything. We're not slowing down development. We're not stopping development until we get somewhere, we do enough research. It's research is just baked into the process.
Yeah, I love this like metaphor of like two lanes and this feedback
Mm-hmm.
lane continuously going next to the building lane. We're tapping into the section of our webinar and discussion, which is where the audience gets to pick your mind. I have tons of other questions, but I want to make sure that everybody who's here and who would like to pick Eric's mind has a chance to do that. And Rosanna already posted a question which relates to the exact topic that we were talking about. What are the effective ways
Mm-hmm.
to talk to? How do you get like users on the call continuously?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is actually a really great one. It's like nuts and bolts. How do we actually make this work? Um, so, this is where marketing actually comes into it. And there's a whole other conversation around marketing as a validation tool. Um, but let's just take a simple example. You have a product that's already in the market. And so you have users that are coming in and they're signing up for stuff. Well, there should always be emails or touch points in your sequence to invite them to an interview. If you're not doing this today and you have a product in market, please go do this like right now. Whether it's a week after they join, a month after they join, 6 months after they join, and specifically before they're coming up for renewal, you want to send them an email and invite them into a product interview. And you can flash it up and say, hey, have an interview with the CEO or the CTO or CPO, what have you. We want to speak to you. And so then you're just creating a drip funnel. And the broader your base, the more customers you have, you're going to get more of these interviews. But that's, I think, just kind of the easiest channel. It's something you're already doing. If you have a product in market, just make sure that there's space in the life cycle of the customer to invite them to come on to an interview. That's one. Two is engaging in social media. So if you're building a product, you absolutely have to have a social media presence. You need to have a content strategy, webinars, those sorts of things. And there should be a space in your content calendar on a periodic basis to invite people to come have interviews with you. You can incentivize them. You can give them promo codes. You can give them a gift card for Starbucks or Amazon or whatever you want. But that there should be this constant automatic recruiting that happens here. So, and when I say automatic, what do we traditionally do? It's, hey, we want to go do some research. Let's go recruit some people. And we send out this huge email blast and we give all of this effort and it takes so much time. Say, great, we've got 25 people. We're doing 25 interviews and we go through the research and we come up and then okay, now back to work. No, it has to be continuous and automatic, right? So these are just some things, right? That bake it into your email, bake it into your content calendar, but just say that there should be these touch points throughout the life cycle. And one other thing too is in your other interactions that you have with customers, sales, customer service, billing, even again on the renewal cycle, that everyone in your department should be, supporting getting people into these product interviews because it makes the experience better. So anytime somebody interacts with customer service, say, glad we could help you with that problem. In fact, we'd want to hear more. I'd love to connect you with our head of product, that sort of thing.
I love that you brought up this example. In the last webinar, I talked to the VP product of Colossian, which is an AI video generating company. The point is that their customer success team works closely together with the product team. And it so
Mhm.
happens that a lot of times product people just sit in and listen to customer success talking to clients, and then vice versa. Customer success joining research calls and listen to
Mhm.
what customers have to say about, like let's say a prototype. So that's an amazing example. I have again, for anyone in the audience, the floor is open, so feel free to put your questions in the comments section. Um, and there we go. Um, we have a question from Poland, and I put it on the screen, which is related to pain points got from a few users. How do you know if it's a necessary feature to add or not?
Hmm. Okay, so I think what this is asking is, we're having a few interviews and we're getting some signal. How do we know that this is actually representative of the market here? Um, as we talked about, it's following signal. So if we're continually having these conversations and we continually bring this up or continue, if we start to hone in on a pain point, we're looking for that resonance. So let's say, for example, I'm having a conversation, tell me about your problems, tell me about your pain points, magic wand, buy a feature, what have you. And this one is consistently coming up top. Then our future conversations are going to start to kind of hone in on that set of pain points. And if we get to a point, or what we want is that every conversation we're having, they're continuing to say, yes, that's a big problem. Yes, that's absolutely the thing. I want to buy a solution for that. If we get to a point after a few where it starts to die off, or say, you know what, the first few really talked about this, but then we talked to 10 more people and nobody else really said they had a thing, that's a segmentation problem. So now I would look at the persona to say, who were those three people, right? And are they the same people as these others? Where's that variable? How do I segment the two? And then I might say, well, for those three, can I talk to more of them? And is this maybe a niching down where there's a smaller subset of the market that really cares about this problem, right? Whereas maybe the larger market either doesn't care, it's not a big problem, or they're just not there yet because there's some other set of problems that are more pressing for them. And then that's a choice that you have to make. Do we hone in on a very severe problem for a smaller segment, or do we focus on something that has a more broad reach? my philosophy, again, is to zoom in and be as specific as possible, solve the most urgent need, and then expand. But it's we're kind of talking hypotheticals here. But so that's essentially it, right? Is like if you have a few people who are emphatically saying that this is a really important problem, you continue down that thread as long as you're getting resonance. And again, um, if you run out, if the signal dies out, like I said before, take a step back. Is there something about the problem? Is there something about the customer? And is there a pivot here?
I talked to a few founders in the last few weeks, and building on Poland's question, the notion that I heard from them is that they qualify these requirements by customers, and they say they follow the money. If the questions and the requests are coming from customers who would pay a lot for this, then they build it. If not, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on this, on bringing in revenue potential when you evaluate what to build and what not to build? Revenue potential
Yeah,
from
yeah.
existing customers, let's put it that way. There's no market. We're talking about the customer who asks for it is paying a bigger chunk of money than others in the customer base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So this is just a strategic question is, are we going after fewer customers that are paying us more? Or are we going after either a broader audience or more growth? So there's something like, are you hunting flies or are you hunting whales? So there's this nice kind of graphic that I refer to a lot as like it's like fly hunting, mouse hunting, rabbit hunting, deer hunting, whale hunting, right? So like how big is the thing? And that's basically your revenue per customer. So if you're hunting flies, that basically means you're making very, very little per customer. That's like a Facebook, right? Something where I'm doing this in volume, and I really don't care about how much each individual customer pays me. So then the strategy there is just grow as quickly as possible. And then all the way on the other side, we have whale hunting, enterprise sales, basically, where we're saying, I care a lot about how much individual customers are paying me, big customers, big tickets are paying me. But then there's a cost associated with that, meaning a lower level of growth, more services, more customization, et cetera. And so you really just kind of have to make a choice. I think another nuance to this, which is really important, is are we willing to sacrifice revenue that we're already getting for potential revenue or potential customers that may have a different fit? And this is a really, really difficult problem to have here. Let's say I have a legacy customer that pays us really well, but they're not where the market's going, right? We're getting a bunch of signal that's telling us go in this direction. There's a lot of opportunity here. And the idea is like, we got to swim from this island to the bigger island over there. But in order to do that, we have to sacrifice, revenue that we already have. One of the toughest strategic decisions that founders have to make. But it's the idea is like, well, what's the future? Is this a company that is going to take us where we want to go, or are they an anchor for us? And then you basically say, all right, how long can we kind of string this along until we finally cut bait and make that swim for the other island? And my recommendation would be move forward into the future boldly. Don't be afraid to lose revenue, to shrink, to even have to let some people go if you feel really strongly that that revenue is holding you back from capturing the future.
I have
Easier said than done.
yes, yes, and it's also certainty versus uncertainty, and then I think there's a very natural human craving for stability and certainty. I have
And that's what and that's what keeps so many companies small,
yeah,
right? Because they
yeah,
get stuck in what exists versus what could exist. And there's nothing
yeah,
wrong with staying small, but you're stuck. And eventually you'll be stuck
yes,
in the past and other companies will come in and beat you to the
okay,
future. It's your
yeah.
choice.
I have a longer question from Joyce, and I
Woo.
think that we could like could chop it up into different sections. There's a lot of good points to unpack here, so I just wanted to
Okay.
throw it on the screen for everyone to see. I'm going to remove it afterwards. We're going to answer the question,
Yeah.
Joyce, so don't worry. Eric's going to answer specifically, but otherwise you won't see us. The first part of the
Yeah.
question is related to a small customer base. How do you actually manage this continuous flow
Yeah.
of discussions with customers if you don't have a big
So I
customer
can,
base and you have lack of access?
yeah. So I can read the question over on the comment. Yeah, you can bring it. I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
still read it.
yeah, yeah. I'll just
Um,
bring us back.
Yeah. So it's I actually like this. So the smaller the customer base, the more opportunity you have to co-create, to partner with those customers to build a solution with and for them. So instead of saying again, this big funnel, type of thing, it's we're going to find a small number of partners and we're going to co-create a solution for them. Meaning, they're on a customer advisory board, they're beta testers, right? They're our early adopters. And that's really what this is here. Is it's an early adopter situation. So your early adopters, if we're doing this continuous validation and discovery right, we have already built relationships with our first customers before we ever even built the product, because we started with, let me get to know you, let me understand your pain points and your problems and just your world, your situation, all the different solutions you're using that are working and some are not, and these are the reasons why, and what would a great solution look like, and let's sketch something out together, and what do you think about this and what do you think about that, and hey, I've got a little prototype, test it out. So you're building a relationship with these customers that if you're following that signal, they're like frothing at the mouth. When can I get this thing? I've already invested so much into it. I can see it. It's literally built for me. I want it. Give it to me now. Those are going to be your early adopters. So co-creation and partnering and human-centered design, user-centered design is all about, again, partnering with your customers and building a solution that really just absolutely nails product market fit before you even write the first line of code. I talk about this a lot, but really what this does is it saves you millions of dollars, because engineers are expensive, right? They're the largest team in the organization. They're the most expensive, people at the organization. Engineering should be, you should already have not only a fully fleshed out product design and concept, but something that's already been validated 9 ways to Sunday with your actual customers who have already said, I want to be a part of this journey. And then you finally say, all right, cool, let's hire some developers and code the thing. And again, from an engineering perspective, I love that because it's like clear signal. There it is. You're running a sprint to the finish line. You can see everything along the way because all those potholes have already been covered.
Yeah.
So okay,
And,
so that's kind of the step
and
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I think then Joyce brings a really fascinating point about, yeah, sales or the C level sort of monopolizing the relationship with these
Mm-hmm.
clients, and because of
Mm.
renewal, there's always a reason, or the fear of showing of a potential roadmap and inflating expectations. Um,
Yeah.
what do you
That's
do
an
if
old
if you
way of
yeah.
Yeah, that's just an old way of thinking, that we need to be afraid of engaging in our customers through the development process and only show them something that's perfectly polished. What's going to happen is they're not going to love it, because it wasn't built for them. They didn't have any input in the process. So, like, if I'm cooking dinner for my kids, I have a choice. I can either say, what would you like for dinner? Giving them all the power to say, make me mac and cheese with marshmallows on top. Or I can say, hey, I know you like chicken. I know you like pasta. What do you think? Should I make a red sauce or should I make a pesto? And give them a choice, right? But they're part of that process. They're engaged in it. Um, Versus I'm going to go build, I'm going to go do a beef Wellington, and then I spent all this time and all this energy, and I played it, and it's on fire and everything, and they go, I don't like it. I want mac and cheese. So that's what we're doing here with our customers when we let that sales-driven approach really take all the air out of the room and not engage product in the process and not engage the customers in the process.
I I I think your point is spot on. If you are the person stuck, and there's a hierarchy here, so you have to argue
Mm-hmm.
with someone higher up in the hierarchy, but potentially a founder, Like what would be your line of argument?
Oh man.
You obviously you can't go up to them and just say, "Hey, you're old-fashioned in your thinking."
Yeah, you're man, you're hitting all the high notes here. Um, this is the Hippo problem: highly paid people's opinions.
Yeah,
This is probably, I would think the number one complaint that product and research and UX teams have is how do they influence? How do they become an authority? And it really means, you are not. It's not your opinion. It's the customer. You are representing the voice of the customer. So as researchers, it's our job to collect evidence and synthesize, right, what the customer is saying and doing. So you're saying, you're not arguing with me, you're arguing with our customers, right? I've brought my evidence, where's your evidence? And it's really about the maturity of the founder, and this is where, a lot of my coaching work comes in as well, is coaching the founders to be more humble and say, I don't have all the answers, so it certainly shouldn't be my opinion, but also I need to be more data driven and more holistic, not just listening to the one or two highly paying customers opinions, right, but to really look at what does our customer audience say overall. And that's where, I mean, it's amazing the evangelism here, where I'm able to show and convince a founder that this continuous validation process works, and then they become hungry for it, because then when they're talking to a customer in a sales call, they say, oh, I've got a signal here, I've got a data point, research team, go validate it. In 1 to 2 weeks, I want you to come back and tell me, is this thing representative of our customer base? And then boom, go, because you've already got everything going, you've got all the wheels turning. You spin up an agile, rapid research thing. We say, come back, answer that question. Yep, this pain point is representative of this segment, maybe not of this segment, whatever. There's a there. Okay, cool. Let's go and invest more into that. So how do we really get that influence? It's by, one, doing good research, but two, not being opinionated in the research, but by
just
really just
showing
saying,
evidence.
these are the facts. This is what our
Yeah,
customers are saying. This is what here's the data. How many people say, 75% said that this was their number one problem. This problem ranked an average of 9 out of 10 on the scale, whereas these other problems ranked 2 out of 10. The thing, your little pet project, the thing that you think is so important, actually only 20% said that it was a big problem, and they on a severity of 2 out of 10. So the data is clearly showing that we need to go in this direction. Take it or
yeah,
leave it.
yeah,
And then it's really up to the founder to have the wisdom to follow that or fail. And a
yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah,
companies
yeah.
fail, and this is one of the main reasons why.
Ego.
Not
I
to get on a soapbox here, but I've seen it happen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. If you don't listen to
that's
your customers, you're going to fail.
Yeah, yeah. There's a last question which I want to throw on the screen here from Dev, which is it's actually two questions, two parts, limited time because time constraints on
Yeah.
validating, and two, when do you stop and or do you stop and ship it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, kind of the theme here is we never stop, right? Because we're always shipping and we're always iterating. So, from an agile development side of things, we're shipping constantly, right? We're always shipping new features. We're always iterating on what we're doing, and that there's this separate lane of research that we're constantly validating, and the validation happens before and after the ship. So we're doing the discovery on the front end to figure out what problems to solve and what solutions to build, and then iterating through how that solution actually needs to take form. And then we're shipping everything from, again, a clickable prototype is the first shipment, is just a UX and maybe a little bit of UI. And then as we increase fidelity, we're increasing, again, the workflow and the UI and so on. And we're starting to plug in the backend into it until we have a workable prototype and beta test and so on. And now once it's out in the market, now we're just validating with our overall customer base. So first we're validating with our small segment of people that we're talking to, follow the signal, launch the thing. Now we're validating is, does everybody actually get the same experience, or does everybody care the same way or want to use it the same way, as so on. And so then we just validate our existing feature set through usability testing and so on with our existing customers. That's what I was saying in that email drip sequence, right? We want to talk to people who just joined. We want to talk to people who've been with us for a year or 5 years or whatever, because at each stage, they're going to be different set of problems, different level of maturity, different level of understanding or experience with the tool, and so on. So the answer is we never stop, and
We never stop.
we never delay. We keep shipping, we keep validating.
Yeah. It reminds me of my swimming coach back in the days when I did competitive swimming, and one of my teammates asked when we take a break, and he said, "We usually take a break when you're in the grave." And then, then there was
I disagree with
there
that.
was
I said we take breaks, but just we never stop swimming, right? Take
But
breaks.
yeah. True. Eric, we went over time. Thanks for accommodating, and thanks for answering all the questions in depth. I'm
Of course.
indebted to all the wisdom that you shared with me and this amazing audience. Thanks to everyone for being active, for asking questions, for joining and listening to us. In 2 weeks, I'm going to have my next Airtime webinar. I just posted the link about that. It's focusing on leveling up your communication skills, how to be a more effective communicator as a UX researcher and convince stakeholders, for instance, to let you do more research and hide behind retention and other discussions. With that, we're going to wrap up the session today. I'm going to post a recording and send the recording to every one of you in the next couple of days. Thanks for being here, Eric. It was amazing,
Yeah,
and I hope to have you back sometime soon and explore other topics with you.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. And quick plug, by the way. So for folks that are in here that have enjoyed this, that want to learn more, I'm actually putting together a boot camp for early stage product founders, product leaders, actually in partnership with one of your past guests, Dr. Brian Rill. And so anybody who's interested, go to chaos2clarity.io, click on the boot camp, and we're going to put all this stuff into practice and actually not only teach you how to validate and build a really great solution, but it actually even ends with an investment pitch. So you'll walk out of it with something that you can take directly to investors with all the insights and all the the product of your research to ensure that you close some money and actually go build the thing.
Wow. I put the link in the chat. Check it out. Brian is a fantastic researcher with almost, I think by now, almost 30 years of user research experience. So the team of you and
Yeah, he's
Brian,
amazing.
it's an A team. Um, with that,
Thank you.
let's wrap things up. Eric, again, thanks so much. Thanks to the audience, and hope to see all of you soon. Take care,
All
everyone.
right. Thank you. Take care,
Bye
everyone.
bye.